since 1967, and I've known Art Maethner for all that time, obviously. He is a member of our local chapter, and Art is married to his wife, Judy. They have two boys, grown-up boys, Kurt and Scott. Art was the first American to teach German, German, yes, to the American children after the war. This is World War II. Art has also been very instrumental in helping Gene Manusef as well as Mike Wald on the translation of the German to English in both of their catalogs. And I think if you have not been aware of their catalogs, one was the HR catalog and the other is the Character Sign catalog. Besides that, Art just returned a month or so ago with Les Paul. Both of them went over to Europe, and Art had lined up many of the museums over there, and Art went along and translated as well as established contact with the museums over there so they could, so Les could do further study and that on Faience Steins, and I'm sure Les is very thankful to have Art along because he does not speak German. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you Art Maethner, who will speak on the history and the tradition of German university student societies. Art, thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Meine Damen und Herren, guten Morgen. I wear the colors of the Wingolf Burschenschaft of the University of Erlangen in Bavaria. I wear them in their honor and in the honor of all the Burschenschaften and Corporationen who have contributed so much over the years to the rich cultural history of Germany. Before I present a brief history of the German University Student Societies and some of their traditions, yeah, you could do that now, John. I would like to share with you one of their most popular ballads of fellowship. It is called O alte Herrlichkeit, alte Burschenherrlichkeit. The last word, Burschenherrlichkeit, is almost twice as long as Gemütlichkeit and almost as difficult to translate. But I think the phrase, O glorious age of golden youth, conveys the idea, at least in a figurative, if not in a literal sense. The English first, and then you'll hear the German to sort of set the scene. O glorious age of golden youth, please tell me where you've flown. That splendid time that won't return, yet one for which we all still yearn. In vain, I look around my world to find your banner still unfurled. The student heart alone can never more grow cold. A righteous spirit and firm control will temper earnestness with soul. And though the shell be far away, the core remains to hold its sway. On that we can rely. While friends to friends hold out their hands, their spirits to renew, the holy bond of friendships old, the ancient bond of loyalty, regain their proper view. Clink your glasses, raise them high, the old gray guard will never die, nor will their ancient loyalties. The beginnings of the German student history lead us to the oldest university of Western Europe, namely to Bologna in northern Italy. Shortly after its establishment in the 12th century, students banded together in protective associations based upon their country of origin, the so-called Nationes. A student was admitted to this medieval university by simply reporting to the Nation to which he belonged by right of his national heritage. The Nationes themselves comprised two groups. The students from these areas and those areas of Northern Europe, which we now refer to as Germany, considered themselves members of the group called the Universitates Ultramontorum. In this group of 17 Nationes of transalpine origin, the students of the German Nation formed the largest protective guild or corporation. Accordingly, every 5 years they had the privilege of having the rector of the Ultramontani selected from their ranks. When the first university of the German Empire was founded in Prague in 1348, the university students in Prague were divided into the four Nationes of Bohemia, Bavaria, Saxony, and Poland. The students now matriculated with the vice-chancellor of the university, but the protective role of the Nation remained. Student hostels, known as Bursen, had been established and were maintained on an ongoing basis. Students customarily appeared in a body, and as such, collectively warded off any attacks by other students. Acceptance into these Bursen occurred according to the rules of the society. The initiate had to submit to a ceremony of persecution and torment, while attired in outlandish... Oh, sorry. Come back up there one more time. Oh, let's get there. While attired in outlandish clothing for which he had to pay the full cost, and he had to pay the full cost of a fraternal feast, including all of the liquid refreshments. The art of printing with movable type, and there you have, by the way, just an early print which shows you some of the hazing, if you will. This was probably the origin of it, that we have from that period. I guess one of these got switched around. Let me go back one more here. There we are. The art of printing with movable type was invented by Johannes Gutenberg in the 15th century. Under the influence of the resultant humanistic movement, the desire for self-improvement was intensified. However, the sovereigns were no longer willing to allow their subjects to study at foreign universities. As a result, 17 new universities were founded in Germany by the year 1506. However, the fraternal societies continued to determine every aspect of the students' lives. During the first year of study at the university, the grammar school year, or the Penaljahr, the young student had to submit to the directives of his more advanced fraternal brothers, the so-called Schoristen. This status, in effect, degraded the beginning student to someone without rights within his brotherhood. He was required to surrender his money and his clothing on demand, to allow himself to be thrashed at will. He was required to serve his older fraternal brothers and was even denied the pleasure of female companionship. In compensation for this treatment, the initiate was protected by his brotherhood from any attacks by older members of older orders and other orders. These aberrations even led to the deaths of some students. As a result, the university authorities finally came to a communal understanding in 1636 and stated that the accursed excesses were no longer to be tolerated. 18 years would pass, however, before a bill was finally drafted at the Diet of Regensburg in 1654, whereby these excessive initiation procedures were actually forbidden by law. Upon their return from the Napoleonic Wars of Liberation, the students came under the influence of the German philosophers Jahn, Fichte, and Arndt, and began to develop the concept of German unity. This concept received an especially fruitful reception in Jena. On June 12, 1815, the Student Association, or Burschenschaft, as it came to be known, was founded after all of the different brotherhoods were dissolved. This Burschenschaft was meant to include all of the students at the university. A large number of the founders had served in the Lützow Free Corps during the wars of liberation against Napoleon. Therefore, they chose the colors of Lützow, black tunic, red braid, gold buttons, as the colors of the young Burschenschaft. This student association sought the establishment of an all-inclusive student federation. To achieve this goal, they invited students from all the German universities to a celebration of the second anniversary of the Battle of Leipzig, the Völkerschlacht, at the Wartburg Castle near Eisenach in Thuringia. At this festival, on October 18, 1817, they supported the demand for state unity, freedom of speech and the press, and equality before the law. The sovereign rulers of Germany's many petty states were diametrically opposed to these republican aspirations because they posed a serious threat to the absolute control they had over their subjects. When a member of the Burschenschaft, Karl Ludwig Sand, assassinated the dramatist August von Kotzebue on March 23, 1819, a man whom many students saw as the very embodiment of everything they considered un-German, the authorities felt they had the perfect justification to initiate a policy of persecution against the Association of German Students. Under the direction of the Austrian minister, Prince Metternich, the Karlsbad decrees were published and proclaimed in the autumn of 1819. Government officials were placed in all the universities and were invested with full powers to control the political convictions of students and professors. The Allgemeine Burschenschaft was dissolved, and its members were not allowed to hold any public office. In spite of this persecution, the Burschenschaft continued to exist as an underground organization, a Geheimbund, or secret society, although they disagreed on how best to achieve those goals which they had set for themselves. A Germanistic faction favored the politically pragmatic stance so often connected with the stern appearance of the saber-bearing, uniformed student. At the same time, a more moderate faction, the Armenisten, sought the spiritualization of an idealized student existence. In the meantime, the new student societies had adopted the term corps and consolidated the Seniorenkonvent, or senior residences, SC, at the various universities. In contrast to the Burschenschaft, the corps had no political inclinations whatsoever. The July Revolution in Paris in 1830 created the same liberal demands among the German citizenry which had formerly been espoused exclusively by the Burschenschaft. When the liberal press was subjected to disciplinary punishment by the authorities, all of the above-mentioned German student societies, even the non-political corps, founded a radically aligned Pressverein, or press club. This desire for freedom reached its high point at the Hambach Festival on May 27, 1832, when the black-red-gold colors of the Burschenschaft, as a symbol of the movement for national unity, became the colors of the proposed German Republic, and they are now the colors, as you know, of the German Republic. As a sidelight, symbolically, and many people aren't aware of this, but symbolically the colors black, red, and gold, schwarz, rot, gold, symbolize the concept initially out of the night of monarchy through the blood of revolution to golden freedom. And when the colors again became official after World War II, the thought was much the same. Out of the darkness of the dictatorship through the blood of war to golden freedom. So the colors, the significance of the colors are very strong indeed. As a countermeasure, it was decided to pursue the only alternative remaining, because Metternich had answered these demands for the Republic with suppressive measures against freedom of speech and assembly, as well as a revival of the Karlsbad decrees. So the students had what they felt only one recourse: force. On April 3rd, 1833, the German university students in Frankfurt revolted, sought to gain support of all of Germany by encouraging an insurrection among the people. Their efforts, however, resulted in failure and brought an end to this struggle to create a republic in Germany at that time. A federal central authority was established in Frankfurt to investigate all of the student associations, and as a result, more than 1,200 students were prosecuted for revolutionary behavior. Representatives of all the German universities, among the members of the Burschenschaft, the Corps students, and the Vienna Academic League, or Legion, met at the Second Wartburg Festival in 1848. Once again, demands for a democratic university system were presented, but were found to be unacceptable by the authorities. The Burschenschaft, or Corps students, and Corps students continued to suffer persecution at the hands of the authorities. It was not until 1870, in the outbreak of hostilities between Germany and France, known in the United States as the Franco-Prussian War, that the individual student societies were allowed to develop freely. As Germany moved toward unification, these societies became more conservative. The political spirit of the universities was now set by the aristocratic student corps and by the Burschenschaften, who were now virtually indistinguishable from the corps in their loyalty to the Hohenzollern crown. It is possible that the Prussian government encouraged the student societies precisely because their social activities kept them away from politics. The members of these color-bearing societies came for the most part, from aristocratic and upper-middle-class families. This fact explains the anti-republicanism now of the majority of the students at the universities during the Weimar period of the 20s and early 30s. Over half of the male students were members of such societies. Some historians believe that the students contributed to the destruction of a demoralized democracy at this time. But it must be remembered that their naive acceptance of National Socialism was the result of over a century of systematic discouragement of student reform movements and the deliberate fostering of political indifference by governmental authority. The National Socialist German Students' League was founded in 1926. It was designed to direct student energies into effective political channels, something which had never been done before. Within 5 years, this body was the strongest political force among German students, claiming the support of over half the student body. The World Depression was doubtless the most important of the forces that turned German students in that direction. They were accustomed to think of themselves as the elite of the future, and the Depression threatened them with unemployment and loss of status. They came to realize too late that the monarchism favored by their parents and professors was no viable alternative to conditions as they existed. Ironically, when the National Socialists took over the reins of government in 1933, the fate of the German university student societies was sealed. It was decreed that no Burschenschaft or Corporation would be allowed to exist after 1936, although several of the societies sought to maintain their traditions within the framework of the Student League. It was not until after World War II that they were able to reconstitute themselves at the universities of the Federal Republic of Germany and the Republic of Austria. The Corporationen at the universities in the German Democratic Republic, however, continued to be prohibited. Most of these student societies, as well as those from the cities of Königsberg, Danzig, Breslau, and Prague, were reopened at West German universities, some of them merging with other established societies. When the states of Brandenburg, Saxony, Mecklenburg, Thuringia, and Sachsen-Anhalt, which had comprised the former German Democratic Republic, decided to become an integral part of the Federal Republic of Germany, the first Corporation returned to Leipzig and Jena. The Corps Thuringia Jena, the oldest Jena Corps, had its residence in Hamburg from 1948 to 1990. In November 1990, this Corps, housed in its historic home in Jena, fought its first duel, a classic Pro Patria suite, with the Cimbria Burschenschaft in Munich. The following pictures of German antiquities encompass a period of 150 years of German cultural history. Although several of these student items are worthy of special mention, it would be beyond the scope of this presentation to give you more than a brief overview of the vast amount of studentica which could be considered Stein-related. Almost all of the objects portrayed here are decorated with a coat of arms and a personal dedication which makes them truly unique. However, it is often possible to provide even more details regarding their origins and the reasons for their creation. A Bierstein from the stoneware factory of Villeroy and Boch, which you see there in the upper left-hand corner, molded to give the appearance of a tree trunk, bears on its pewter lid a porcelain medallion which depicts a view of the Rhine River near the Rolandseck, as well as the year 1849, together with the student cipher Verbindungszirkel of the Teutonia in Bonn. Coincidentally, a lithograph of this very same society exists which portrays the members of the Teutonia on an excursion to the Rolandseck in 1849. Of the 33 students shown in this photograph, all have some object in their hands, a pipe, a guitar, a banner, a glass, but only one, the fourth student from the right, holds the tree trunk Stein. This photograph of a mensur of the Studentenkonvent in Bonn was taken in the academic year 1887-1888. The caps, ribbons, and color shields on the crossed flags, as well as the dueling saber guards, are all hand-colored. Under the photo are the names of 81 corps members, as well as 6 corps attendants. The mensur is the name by which the German university dueling societies identify their duel of honor. The traditions of the mensur are so inextricably woven into the fabric of the student societies that even the non-dueling societies are influenced by its precepts. The technique the duelists use is a highly Teutonic one. They stand their ground and back away and hack away at one another. It is absolutely forbidden to flinch, as this would be regarded as a great loss of honor. The scars they bear as a result of wounds inflicted during the duel are proof that they fought a duel with honor, that they stood their ground. The delicate thrust and parry so associated with fencing is entirely lacking in the mensur. This miniature portrait, oh, here's just another view of the mensur. We'll say a bit more about that a bit later. This miniature oil on porcelain, only 3.5 by 4.5 inches, was done in 1826. The half-length portrait of a Bursche wearing the traditional ribbon and service, or small round student cap, is done in a finely detailed manner. It is interesting to note that in this instance the ribbon is worn over the left shoulder, a departure from the traditional right shoulder position, but which was the custom in the Franconia Society of Würzburg until July 29, 1873. Research has identified the young man as Anton Baron von Gutenberg aus Gutenberg in Upper Franconia, Bavaria, where he was an active member of the Franconian Society in 1826-27. The Royalist Corps recruited their members almost exclusively from the aristocracy and from the upper middle class. Prominent among them was the Corps Borussia, which counted among its members Kaiser Wilhelm II. This is a bit dark because we can't get the lights down anymore, but I hope you'll bear with me. It gives you an impression, at least, of some of the pieces that we want to just show you in overview. I hope that these next pictures will give you a better idea of what forms these Steins took, both in the dueling and non-dueling societies in Germany and Austria. To supplement this information, I would recommend for your reading pleasure an excellent article entitled German Fraternity Steins, written by Ron Heiligenstein, which was published in the March 1987 issue of Prosit. I'm sure many of you have read that, and even if you have, it may be worth your while after this lecture to go back when you get home and take another look at it. The coat of arms on either the body or the lid of these steins does indeed identify them as fraternal steins, and the steins pictured in the article are so identified. However, I would suggest that in the future the term fraternity stein be limited to those steins which are from true fraternities, that is, American university student societies designated by 2 or more letters of the Greek alphabet. Strictly speaking, there are not now, nor have there ever been, any fraternities at German universities. The Burschenschaften and or Corporationen are steeped in Latin, not Greek tradition. This is reflected in their use of Latin on and around the individual coats of arms, as well as symbolically within the cipher or circle, which is also described so well in the Prosit article. As I indicated, these are just a few of the pieces that the Germans would refer to as Studentica. And you can see that they took many forms with the coats of arms either on the lid or, as you see here, on the surface of the piece, whether it be a mug or a stein. Most of them technically are steins. But you can also see that there were some other items as well. For example, the mocha cups that you see here, and various things that would be related to student life at that time. On many of the steins, and as you can see here also on this plaque, you will see the name of the Burschenschaft, or the Corporation, followed by the term Sais Panier. Panier is simply the German word for a banner or a standard. And this phrase, which is on almost all of the crests or coats of arms, does simply indicate that it is their wish that this be our banner, that this is going to be symbolic of what we represent. So whether it be Borussia Sais Panier or Saxonia Sais Panier, it is basically meant to convey that idea. A variety of things, as you can see here. I wish. No, I'll say a word about that in just a moment. As you can see, and these are items that we normally do not find. They are somewhat rarer. I'm sure some of you may have some in your collections, but we think mostly of the regimental pipes, and yet these are pipes that were the Burschenschaften or Corporationen pipes, and again are very beautifully painted, usually with the name of the artist somewhere on the base of the piece, and these are fine examples of that type of pipe. Another item which the Germans refer to as a Bierzipfel, we have simply referred to it over the years as a watch fob in those good old days when we still had pocket watches. But this is the Bierzipfel. Sometimes they also had the term Weinzipfel or Sektzipfel, wine or champagne. They were somewhat narrower, but they are examples here to the left of that type of decorative badge, and it was quite often the custom then for the Fuchs or the first-year student to give his mentor, in some cases a stein, but in other cases an engraved, appropriately engraved Bierzipfel. The one that I have here on my desk, look at that later if you wish, is one from this same fraternity of the Bingo Burschenschaft. I use the word fraternity there. I really should have said, again, student society. Many of the Stein-related items of Studentica which are portrayed here but rarely seen outside of student society houses and certain museums, are taken from a soft-cover book entitled Studentica, published by the Galerie Wolfgang Ketterer in Munich. I'm indebted to Walt Voigtis for providing me with a copy. I could not have shared this material with you if I had not had this book placed at my disposal. Among my personal collection of Studentica are two books which I found in Germany in the late 50s. The older of the two is the Allgemeines Reichskommersbuch für deutsche Studenten, the Imperial German Songbook for German students, edited by Müller von der Wehre, published in Leipzig in 1880. Unfortunately, this edition featured only one illustration, but it is the one I chose to introduce the song O alte Burschenherrlichkeit, because I felt it personified the spirit of that song and the time out of which it arose. The other book is truly a classic, Aura Academia, ein Jahrbuch für junge und alte Burschen, Academic Whispers, an Almanac for university students, young and old. Published in Leipzig in 1913, this book contains a collection of essays on various aspects of student tradition, tales, sketches, and poetic works, all of them richly illustrated. I wish and would like to share with you a few of these illustrations because they portray certain aspects of German student life at the turn of the last century which no longer exist today except in the memory of some old gentleman of the imperial era. Fackelzug, Freiburg, a torchlight ceremony procession in Freiburg. Der Fuchs, a fox, the fox, a first-year university student in Tübingen. Verlobung, Leipzig, betrothal in Leipzig. Schlägermensur, Jena, duel of honor in Jena. Alte Herrenkneipe, Berlin, the old boys pub in Berlin. Ausritt, Heidelberg, excursion on horseback, Heidelberg. Just recently, I had the good fortune to acquire a collection of postcards from this same period. Most of them were done by an artist named Georg Mühlberg, who coincidentally did some of the illustrations in the Aura Academia Almanac, which I had found in Germany 30 years ago. The Landesvater was the name given to the annual ceremony of the university student dueling societies at which the Münzen, or caps of the students, are pierced by the dueling sword. The Landesvater, or father of the country, is a person of some importance who conducts the ceremony. A song which refers to this ceremony is called Der Landesvater and dates from 1782. The last verses in translation reflect again those traditions which the German university Burschen have always held in high esteem. For that reason, they are worthy of being given here. Bring forward the ceremonial sword, the free weapon of free men. Solemnly carry it toward me, still heavy with the students' caps. Let us solemnly listen, let us solemnly lighten its burden. Let each cap once more cover its owner's head, and the sword, kept clean and untouched, let it rest till next we celebrate. Take the cap, I will cover your head with it. We'll extend our swords in salute, for this brother we shout, Hurrah! Damned be anyone who would attack him. As long as he is one of us, we will call him brother. For this brother shout, Hurrah! These next postcards are from the collection I alluded to, and again, the phrases which I'm using here are the phrases that are found on the reverse side of the cards. These were published in Heidelberg between 1906 and 1909, and I've given them an English equivalent for your benefit as well. Reception im Chor, admission to the society, a very solemn occasion, as you can see, by candlelight. Zum ersten Mal in Wix, in full dress for the first time. A very proud moment then for the new initiate after his first year. Die Sekundanten, the representatives to the principals of the duel. Mensur Pause, an interruption of the duel. Chordiener, Speer einziehen, the corps attendants in their role. Der Herr Pakant, der Herr Pakant, student slang for the duelist. Säbel Mensur, duel of honor with sabers. Auf die Mensur, at the duel of honor. And the simple question, warum halt? Why stop? From Heidelberg, nach der Mensur, after the duel in Heidelberg. Abfuhr, a disabling wound. Again, student slang. Renomierbummel, the braggart's stroll, showing off their wounds, in a sense, to the public. Maibola, a punch spiced with woodruff, which the Germans refer to as Waldmeister. A beer duel, a drinking duel. I suppose in American slang, a type of chug-a-lug contest. A Budenskat, a card game for 3 players, usually is played in a German student's dwelling, which was referred to as a Bude. And finally, with his Chorhund, a dashing student, a Flotter Bursche. Back up one more time here. And in conclusion, there is one student song which has echoed down through the centuries and has crossed and recrossed international boundary lines. It has transcended time and space because it is universal and thus touches us in much the same way that it touched those students who sang it with such fervor in years gone by. Although the composer and poet are unknown, its spirit is that of the Germany of the University of Wittenberg, of which Shakespeare's Hamlet had such fond memories, and where Martin Luther preached his doctrine of Reformation. It is the spirit of the centers of learning, where Kant and Hegel expounded their philosophies, and Goethe and Schiller wrote inspired poetry. It is indeed the very spirit of the university student life which Johannes Brahms celebrated in his undying academic festival overture, Gaudeamus Igitur. Whoever composed this music and expressed these thoughts did so in Latin, but this is his message to us in English. Let us therefore rejoice while we are all still young, for after a joyful youth and a wearisome old age, the earth will receive us. Where are those who were here in the world before us? Let us rise to the heights and then descend to the depths where they already are. Long life to our school and its professors. May every member live. Let them all live. May they flourish forever. Meine Damen und Herren, Prost. Thank you.